Once again, welcome to ECR Talks. Today we bring to you something very interesting, the resignation of Home Secretary Suella Braverman. Now, this happened yesterday on the 13th of November 2023. About a year ago, I think it was actually precisely on the 1st of November 2022, the great debate hosted by Trevor Phillips on Sky News 9 p.m. The question was being asked whether Suella Braverman was the right person for the job as Home Secretary. Now, in the words of former British Prime Minister Harold Wilson, a week in politics is a very long time, and I will rephrase it as a week in politics is a very long time. So Suella Braverman has been in a post for about 1 year, 1 month. Now, to get the precise date, so she, according to this, she came into office somewhere in September 22, but that would have been under Liz Truss's administration. I mean, Liz Truss took office on the 6th of September 2022, so one could just assume that around about that time, Suella Braverman was appointed as a Home Secretary. But come November, she had been, October actually, to be more precise, October 2022, she was sacked for leaking information, and this probably was about 6 times. And so then she was not in office, but then Liz Truss only lasted 49 days as Prime Minister, as British Prime Minister. And therefore she was in office from the 6th of September to 14th of October 2022, which is 49 days, and at which time she was no more Prime Minister. So Rishi Sunak took over, and then soon afterwards appointed Suella Braverman back into the office as Home Secretary. So she then commenced office again in October 2022, up until the 13th of November 2023. Now, from her resignation letter, which I'm going to read and try to maybe digest it to see what she is saying, how relevant that is, so that we know where this is going. And so, yes, on the 14th of November, which is today, she comes in with her resignation letter, in which she has basically made a lot of statements. It's probably one of the longest resignation letters I've seen in modern British politics. And a lot of things has been said in this letter. So we are going to go through this letter to see what the content is. It seems to me that she was very instrumental in possibly helping Prime Minister Rishi Sunak in coming into office. And so maybe she feels very betrayed, but that is politics. And so if we were to sort of go back to Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng, this is obviously 6th of September 2022 to October 25th, when Liz Truss was out of office. She also, I'm very sure that Kwasi Kwarteng must also have been a very loyal person to Liz Truss. But he was kicked out of office in 38 days. So he lasted 38 days, which is from the 6th of September 2022 to 14th October 2022. But in British politics, I think it's whatever the situation, it's probably a lot wiser to exercise some degree of restraint for a person's own political career, because a lot can be basically said of the manner in which a person conducts themselves when things don't go their way. So without further ado, I'm just going to go into this resignation letter, read it, and then see what sort of comments one can make out of it. But the reality is that, as Harold Wilson said, a week in politics is a very long time. And so 1 year, 1 month in politics is a very long time. At the moment, the only thing that I can say, whether our current Prime Minister does have the mandate of the British people or not, there is some element of stability from all the things that were happening if you should go back about a year or a year and a half ago. And so he's taken office and he's basically managed to keep the situation calm up until now. And so are we willing as a people to find ourselves back in the same position where you have a lot of wise and powerful and rich people, each one of them thinking that they are potential to be prime minister, and therefore then that causes all these problems at the top. Around about this time, political stability is a very important thing. So let's go on to this letter. So the resignation letter, as I read here, it says, "Dear Prime Minister, thank you for your phone call yesterday in the morning in which you asked me to leave government. While disappointing, this is for the best. It has been my privilege to serve as Home Secretary and delivered on what the British people have sent us to Westminster to do. I want to thank you all of those civil servants, police, border force officers, and security professionals with whom I have worked and whose dedication to public safety is exemplary. I am proud of what we have achieved together, delivering on our manifesto pledge to recruit 20,000 police officers and acting new laws such as Public Order Act 2023 and the National Security Act 2023. I have led a program of reform on antisocial behavior, police dismissal and standards, reasonable lines of inquiry, grooming gangs, knife crime, no hate crime incident, rape and serious sexual offenses. I am proud of the strategic changes that I was delivering to prevent, contest serious organized crime and fraud. I am sure that this work will continue with the new ministerial team." So there has been some sort of a cabinet reshuffle. So this is where obviously she has to go. "As you know, I accept your offer to serve as Home Secretary in October 2022 on certain conditions, despite you having been rejected by a majority of party members during the summer leadership contest, and thus having no personal mandate to be Prime Minister. I agreed to support you because of the firm assurance you gave me on key policy priorities. These were amongst other things, so I'm going to go into it, but obviously here she makes a comment that the Prime Minister didn't have a mandate. But if I remember vividly that Rishi Sunak was ahead of Penny Morden. She was ahead of all the others. That is where the MPs were concerned. And so, we are not fools in this country. We know that, democracy is not really working in this country. It's one could say that it's a system of oligarchy. And so for that matter, the Prime Minister certainly did have the numbers, obviously, amongst the MPs. Sometimes people could say, okay, that is still democratic on the basis of the MPs are the representatives of the people. And so the people call these MPs into parliament to basically speak on behalf of their constituencies and make decisions for the constituencies. So these MPs, if they gave their mandate to the Prime Minister in that race, then potentially some people could say that is a mandate. And so, that statement is, seems a controversial statement. And I don't know if it's everyone that will agree to that statement, but that has been made. So she goes on to say, one, so this is something to do with the manifesto and the work that Prime Minister promised her that they were going to do to reduce overall legal migration as set out in the 2019 manifesto through inter-aligned reforming the international students route and increasing salary threshold on work visas. Include specific notwithstanding clauses into new legislation to stop the boat, i.e. exclude the operation of the European Convention on Human Rights, Human Rights Act and other international laws that has thus far obstructed progress on this issue. Now, this, once again, I would like to comment on this. So here we have the European Convention on Human Rights. And so it appears to me that Home Secretary was willing to basically discard this human rights so that she could basically push ahead with this government Rwanda scheme. Now, what one have to realize is that, after the Second World War, the United Nations were concerned about human rights. And so this is what basically established the United Nations to ensure that there is global security and obviously the protection of people's rights, with all the situation of the war. And so you realize that the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, that is the UDHR, borrowed a lot of its narrative from the US, Bill of Rights. And so, in the world, this is what you see. You find that laws that protects humanity, whoever started those laws, when new laws are being made, they are actually based on the old ones. A lot of narrative is actually picked up from the old ones to build the new one. And so it is very important that, for human rights and human protection, there is that commitment to be part of this, even if we are out of the European Union, to be part of the European Convention on Human Rights. It's a very important thing for this nation. And so if we have some sort of quick idea and we want to do something very quickly, then we want to use that short-term thinking to basically come out of a convention that is protecting every person's civil liberties. And so that, for example, I wouldn't say is a very good thing, but I'll carry on. Deliver the Northern Ireland Protocol and retain EU law bills in their then existing form and timetable. So, for example, on the Ireland Protocol, there has been a lot of work done there. So, kudos to former Home Secretary. Issue unequivocal statutory guidance to schools that protects biological sex, safeguard single-sex spaces, and empower parents to know what is being taught in their schools, in their children's schools. So that is also a good thing. Carry on. This was a document with clear terms on which you agreed in October 2022 during your second leadership campaign. I trusted you. It is generally agreed that my support was a pivotal factor in winning the leadership contest and thus enabling you to become Prime Minister. For a year, as Home Secretary, I have sent numerous letters to you on the key subjects contained in our agreement, made requests to discuss them with you and your team, and put forward proposals on how we might deliver these goals. I worked up the legal advice, policy details, and action to take on these issues. This was often met with equivocation, disregard, and a lack of interest. Now, this is also an issue here. The reality is that problems that most prime minister or all leaders face is that before you take office, you have an idea, you think that this is the way things are going to be done, or you can almost thinking that you could predict what is ahead of you. But the reality is that any promises that you make towards you going into office, when you get into office, you're going to find out that there are obviously up and coming challenges. You know, this is why Harold Wilson said a week in politics is a very long time, because it's ever changing. There are things that you don't actually so many unexpected things will hit you, and basically you just have to be able to conduct yourself and keep everything under control, which I currently think that the Prime Minister Rishi Sunak is doing. For me, maybe I don't know about other people, but he's keeping he's running the show basically, and it's calm and it's stable, and that is what this country at this stage needs. And so if there has been certain promises made, it is likely that the current conditions basically may cause problems for him to actually deliver those promises. And so having restraint and conducting oneself is very important. I mean, I'm sure Kwasi Kwarteng was sacked by Liz Truss without even him knowing, but he went quietly. And that is the way that any person that is in politics or hoping to have any higher political aspiration should potentially be conducting themselves. So this is my own opinion. So then we go on further. What do we see here? There are not just pet interests of mine. They are what we promised the British people in our 2009 manifesto, which led to landslide victory. They are what people voted for in the 2016 Brexit referendum. Once again, if we go back to Brexit, I mean, the vote that basically got us to go basically to exit the European Union, it was not even 2/3. You know, Brexit is a big issue. It's like a constitutional change. And to do that, you need at least 60% of votes to be able to conduct such a change. And so, you know, talking about, you know, this being the reason why, you know, there was a landslide victory and all that. The landslide victory, in effect, was won by Boris Johnson. And obviously, there were, you know, the issues surrounding him. That is why he had to go for Liz Truss to come and for Rishi Sunak to also come. And so, yes, you know, these are not, you could basically give in your resignation letter without highlighting these issues. Our deal was no mere promise over dinner to be discarded when convenient and denied when challenged. It was clear from day one that if you did not wish to lead the European Convention on Human Rights that way, to securely and swiftly deliver our Rwanda partnership will be to block off the ECHR, the HRA, and any other obligations which inhibit our ability to remove those with no right to be in the UK. Our deal expressly reference notwithstanding clauses to that effect. And so this, once again, is a non-starter, because if you're using your short, because of your short-term, maybe political aspirational ambition, you want to push out the European Convention on Human Rights. You want to push it out as quickly as possible so that you could actually go on with your Rwanda scheme. Now, this is just not correct, because you can actually curb migration without having to get yourself out of this European Convention on Human Rights. This is a convention that has been there for years, and whether we are in or out of the European Union, we should maintain this for the protection of people. And so I will once again not buy this idea. So yeah, your rejection of this path was not merely a betrayal of our agreement, but a betrayal of your promise to the nation that you will do whatever it takes to stop that boat. Anyway, let me just carry on. At every stage of litigation, I caution you and your team against assuming we will win. I repeatedly urge you to take legislative measures that will better secure us against the possibility of defeat. You ignore these arguments. You opted instead for wishful thinking as a comfort blanket to avoid having to make hard choices. This irresponsibility has wasted time and left the country in an impossible position. If we lose in the Supreme Court, an outcome that I have consistently urged we must be prepared for, you will have wasted a year and an act of parliament only to arrive back at square one. Where's done your magical thinking, believing that you will your way through without upsetting polite opinion. Without upsetting polite opinion has meant you have failed to prepare any sort of credible plan B. I wrote to you on multiple occasions setting out what a credible plan B will entail and making clear that unless you pursue these proposals, in the event of defeat, there is no hope of flight this side of an election. I received no reply from you. I can only surmise that this is because you have no appetite for doing what is necessary and therefore no intention of fulfilling your pledge to the British people. Once again, why all this? I think Prime Minister is doing his work. He has his new cabinet focus on the job, and so once again, I don't know if I find all this necessary, but once again, that's up to the viewers. Very happy viewers. Put in your comments, say what you think, and we all get to know if Suella is right or if the Prime Minister is okay carrying on with his job. I mean, at the end of the day, elections will be won and lost. Most of the time, a party comes into power for a very long time, which is what the Tories have done. And the state of the economy is what is going to determine where the votes are going to go. So let's carry on. If, on the other hand, we win in the Supreme Court because of the compromises that you insisted on in the Illegal Migration Act, the government will struggle to deliver our Rwanda partnership in the way that the public expects. The act is far from secure against legal challenges. People will not be removed as swiftly as I originally proposed. The average claimant will be entitled to months of process, challenge, and appeal. Your insistence that Rule 39 indication are binding in international law against the view of leading lawyers, as set out in the House of Lords, will leave us vulnerable to being thwarted yet again by the Strasbourg Court. Another cause for disappointment and the contest to my current article in the Times has been your failure to rise to the challenge posed by increasing vicious anti-Semitism and extremism displayed on our street since Hamas's terrorist atrocities of 7th October. I have become host urging you to consider legislation to ban the hate marches and help stem the rising tide of racism, intimidation, and terrorist glorification threatening our community cohesion. Britain is at a turning point in our history and faces a threat of radicalization and extremism in a way not seen for 20 years. I regret to say that your response has been uncertain, weak, and lacking in the quality of leadership that this country needs. Rather than fully acknowledge the severity of this threat, your team disagree with me for weeks that the law needed changing. So once again, here we are. At one point, the Home Secretary or former Home Secretary makes her bed of the works that she has done and the works that she is doing with policing, and then she comes back again to state that obviously the Prime Minister is weak, there are so many problems, terrorism, all these, so many issues she's mentioning. But the reality is that the same person claims that you've been in office, you've had the police in there, you've recruited 20,000 police officers, you are actually busting crime, you are doing the job. And so the point is that you are now coming to basically contradict your own work, saying that there are all these problems. So if there are these problems, then these problems are being done under your own leadership. And so, one could also say that in October of last year, you were given an opportunity to lead our country. It is a privilege to serve and one we should not take for granted. Service requires bravery and thinking of the common good. It is not about occupying the office as an end in itself. Someone needs to be honest. Your plan is not working. We have endured record election defeats. Your resets have failed and we are running out of time. You need to change your course urgently. Now, I don't know if this resignation was written with somebody's help, but these type of comments against a certain prime minister, really, I don't know what to make of it. Because now you are saying that before you said that you've won landslide victories, and then now you're saying that you've been defeated. There has not been an election, so you cannot tell whether you're going to be defeated or not. And so this, once again, is another problem. So we're getting to the final stages of a resignation letter. I may not have always found the right words, but I have always striven to give voice to the quiet majority that supported us in the 2019. That supported us in 2019. I have endeavored to be honest and true to the people who put us in these privileged positions. I will, of course, continue to support the government in pursuit of policies which align with an authentic conservative agenda. Sincerely, Suella Braverman, retired Honorable Suella Braverman, KC, MP, Member of Parliament, Zefano. So there you go. That's the full resignation letter from Suella Braverman. For one, I think that it would have been wise for a very brief one-page letter. This letter, I've never seen one like that before. It's 3 pages. Most people resign with just 1 page. Very brief. Thank the Prime Minister for the opportunity, having that opportunity to serve as a Home Secretary for 1 year, 1 month. That is awesome. And then you talk about your credentials, all the things that you have done. You thank your Prime Minister and say if they wish you to serve again in another capacity, you will be able to do so, and that you are still a Conservative and still serving the interests of the Conservative Party. I think if I was advising Suella Braverman, that is the way that I would advise her to write her resignation. All these details are no good. They are irrelevant and they are no good. The Prime Minister is also done well by giving his short response in just accepting all the things that has been said. But it's down to the British people to be wise, because that turmoil in the economy, and obviously in Westminster, the spillover is the poor people. If there is no stability in Westminster, it's the average poor person that is going to be suffering for that. And so stability, keeping the economy stable, running the show, keeping it cool and calm is what this nation really needs. We don't need to go back to the Kwesi Kwarteng, Les Truss, Boris Johnson era, where things were so, you wake up the next day, you don't even know who is going to be the Prime Minister. This country doesn't need that. The Conservative Party, they don't need that. And so there's an election, forthcoming election. And so the unity of the party, or the Conservative Party, if they actually intend to win anything, then it's important that they can come together. Let me just check this and make a good job of it. So thank you once again for watching. Add your comments and contributions. See you again.